On the day of my sister's wedding, my family forced me to serve drinks to guests. I said, "I'm not the help." But they laughed in my face. I stayed quiet until I overheard my sister bragging about it. An hour later, I cashed the $10,000 check meant for her gift and disappeared. I've been the black sheep of my family for years. My sister Isla, the golden child, is always the center of attention, and I've always been the one behind the scenes doing all the grunt work. So, when it came time for her wedding, I thought it might be my chance to finally feel included. Instead, they treated me like I was invisible, until I overheard Isla and my mom laughing about how easy it was to take advantage of me. At that moment, I decided I was done. I cashed the $10,000 check I had planned to give her as a wedding gift, packed up, and left without a word. I don't know why I thought Isla's wedding would be any different. Maybe because she and Ben had been together for so long, and I genuinely hoped it would be an opportunity for the family to be, well, a family. But deep down, I knew it was naive to expect anything different from my mother and sister. They'd always treated me like an afterthought. But still, I held on to the hope, as foolish as it was. When Isla first told us about her engagement, the whole family rallied around her. My mom couldn't stop talking about the wedding planning and how amazing everything would be. I was happy for her, honestly. She deserved to be happy, right? But it still stung that no one really noticed me in the process. As usual, I was left out of the fun details. I wasn't involved in the planning or asked for my opinion on anything. I was just expected to show up when needed and, as always, play the role of the invisible sister. I guess I should have known what kind of wedding it was going to be from the very beginning. It was all about Isla. The spotlight was always on her, even when it wasn't her turn. The day of the wedding arrived, and it was everything you'd expect. A massive venue, a fancy banquet hall, flowers everywhere, and Isla looked stunning. Of course, she did. She always did. My mom was in her element, practically glowing with pride. I showed up early, like always, ready to help with whatever was needed. I didn't even question it, this was what I had always done. But as soon as I arrived, I felt that familiar wave of invisibility wash over me. Isla was busy with her bridesmaids, my mom was constantly telling me what to do, and no one even seemed to acknowledge my presence. My brother, Luke, who was a few years younger than me, didn't even look my way. It was like I was just another body in the room meant to make things run smoothly for everyone else. As the guests started arriving, I was immediately assigned to help with the drinks. At first, I didn't mind. I mean, I was there to help, right? But then they started pushing me further into the role of waitstaff. My mom casually asked me to serve the drinks to the guests. And not in a "hey, could you do me a favor?" way. It was more like a direct order. "Here, Mira, take this tray of champagne and serve it to the guests. They'll appreciate it more if you bring it to them," she said, not even looking up from her phone. I was about to say something, anything, but before I could, Isla appeared, smiling brightly in her wedding dress. She was surrounded by her bridesmaids, laughing and chatting. She glanced at me with a look that was a mixture of amusement and indifference. "Come on, Mira, you've got the time, right? It's not like you have anything else to do," Isla said. Her words stung more than I expected. It wasn't the first time she had said something like that to me, but something about the way she said it that day felt like a slap in the face. I stayed quiet, doing as I was told. I don't know why I didn't speak up then. Maybe I didn't want to make a scene at her wedding. Maybe I thought I could just grin and bear it like I had all these years. But the truth was, something deep inside me was boiling. I spent the next few hours circulating the room, delivering drinks to people I didn't know, and trying to keep a smile on my face. It was all so fake, but I couldn't bring myself to say anything. My mother and Isla were in their little bubble, chatting with guests, laughing, enjoying their perfect day. The more I looked around, the more I realized that this wasn't just a wedding, it was a performance. A performance where I was just a backdrop. But as the night went on, things started to shift. At one point, I was standing near the bar, refilling glasses when I overheard a conversation. It was Isla, her voice easily carrying over the chatter of the crowd. She was speaking to one of her friends, and I could hear every word, even though I wasn't supposed to be listening. You know, I'm so lucky to have Mira around. She's such a pushover. I can get her to do anything, and she'll just smile and do it, Isla said, her voice dripping with mock affection. Her friend laughed. Wow, that's awful. But kind of funny. Does she ever say no? Isla chuckled. No, never. It's like she's programmed to do whatever we want. I guess it's nice for me. I don't have to worry about asking her for anything. I felt a sickening knot in my stomach. I stood there, frozen, as Isla laughed with her friend about how easy it was to manipulate me. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. But what really hit me was when my mother joined the conversation. She's always been like that, she said, not a trace of guilt in her voice. Ever since she was a kid. It's just easier to let her do the work than to ask anyone else. And the best part is, she'll never complain. I felt the heat rising in my chest, but I didn't move. I didn't make a sound. It was like everything had frozen around me, and for the first time I saw them for what they truly were. Isla, my mother, the rest of the family, they had always taken me for granted. They had always seen me as someone they could use. I was never a daughter or a sister. I was just a tool, someone they could rely on to make their lives easier. I couldn't take it anymore. Without saying a word, I walked straight to the gift table, where the envelopes were piled up. I found the envelope with my name on it, and inside was a check. A $10,000 check. The money I had carefully set aside as my wedding gift for Isla. At first, I had planned on giving it to her in person. I had even written a heartfelt note, telling her how happy I was for her and Ben. But in that moment, all I felt was anger. I didn't owe her anything. I didn't owe my family anything. I folded the check carefully and slipped it into my bag, not sparing another glance at the table. I walked out of the venue without a single word. No goodbyes, no explanations. Just the sound of my heels clicking on the marble floors as I made my way toward the exit. I didn't even bother to call a cab. I didn't want to be near anyone from that day, from that life, ever again. I left the wedding, the heavy weight of that $10,000 check in my bag feeling almost symbolic. I could hear the music and laughter in the background as I walked away, but it seemed so distant now. I didn't even take a second to glance back. There was nothing for me there anymore. I remember stepping into the cool night air and feeling a strange sense of liberation wash over me. It was as if, for the first time in my life, I had truly broken free from the chains of my family's expectations. For years, I had been the one to put up with the passive-aggressive comments, the dismissive glances, the constant requests for help without ever receiving a thank you. It was always about Isla. Always about what she needed, what she wanted, and how much everyone adored her. And me? I was just the backup. The person everyone forgot to consider until they needed something done. But I wasn't doing that anymore. Not tonight. Not ever again. I got into a cab and headed straight to the nearest bank. I didn't know what I was doing at that moment, only that I had to make sure I wasn't going to regret my decision. The bank was busy with people doing last-minute transactions, but I didn't care. I handed the check to the teller, who looked at me strangely but took it without saying anything. As the machine processed the check, I stood there, trying to ignore the knot in my stomach. I knew what I was doing. I wasn't just cashing a check, I was making a statement. I was reclaiming something that had been taken from me for years. I was taking control over my own life. The teller handed me the money, and I almost felt a sense of numbness when I looked at the crisp bills in my hand. This was my gift to Isla, yes, but now it was my gift to myself. It was my way of saying goodbye. Goodbye to the family that had never truly seen me. Goodbye to the years of being ignored, manipulated, and used. I didn't even bother to count the money in the bank. I stuffed it into my bag, feeling the cool, smooth bills against my fingers. It was a strange feeling. I had never been one to have that kind of money just lying around, but in that moment, it felt right. I took a deep breath and left the bank. The city lights gleamed brightly, casting long shadows on the pavement. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't care. All I knew was that I wasn't going back to that wedding. I wasn't going back to that life. I booked a last-minute flight out of town the next morning. I didn't tell anyone, not even my brother Luke. I didn't leave a note, didn't send a text, didn't even look back. It felt so final, and yet, it felt like I was just starting something new. As the days passed, I settled into a new city. I found a small apartment, not too big but comfortable enough to call home. It was quiet there, peaceful. No one knew me, and for the first time in my life, that felt like the best thing in the world. I started working at a local cafe, just a part-time gig to pay the bills while I figured out my next steps. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. I wasn't anyone's daughter or sister. I was just Mira, the girl who served coffee with a smile and kept her head down. I spent my evenings walking around the city, taking in the sights and sounds of this new place that felt like a fresh start. I had no family to check in on me, no one to answer to, and I reveled in that freedom. The best part? No one cared about my past. No one cared about who I was supposed to be. They only cared about the person I was becoming. But even in this new life, Isla's wedding, and the events that followed, were never far from my mind. I couldn't help but wonder what they were saying about me now. I hadn't spoken to anyone from my family since the day I left. I could only imagine the drama Isla and my mother must have stirred up. I could already hear Isla, calling my absence typical. I could see her shaking her head with that fake, exaggerated concern that always made me cringe. Myra's always been so unpredictable, she'd probably say. She just disappeared. No explanation. It's like she doesn't care. And my mother? She'd probably blame me for everything, like she always did. I could hear her blaming me for being difficult or not following through. I wasn't the one who walked out on the family, but in her eyes, I always would be. She would never see that I was done. Done with being the one who was expected to sacrifice for them, done with being the silent one who always took the back seat. For a while, I tried not to think about them. But every now and then, I'd catch myself wondering if they even noticed I was gone. If they cared at all. And every time, I came to the same conclusion: they didn't. Isla was probably planning her next big event, making sure the spotlight was on her, while my mom was busy making sure everything fit into their perfect little world. And I was just gone. It wasn't until about a month later that I got a call. It was from my brother, Luke. I didn't recognize the number at first, but when I saw it was him, I hesitated before picking up. "Hey, Mira," he said, his voice uncertain. I didn't know where you went. Mom and Isla are pretty upset. They haven't heard from you since the wedding, and, well, they're wondering if you're okay." I could hear the tension in his voice. I hadn't expected a call from him, and honestly, I didn't know how to respond. Part of me wanted to ignore him, to keep living this new life without their drama. But another part of me, some small part one wasn't ready to admit, felt a pang of guilt. "I'm fine, Luke. I needed to leave. I needed to get away from everything." There was a long silence on the other end of the line before he spoke again. "Look, I don't know what happened at the wedding, but you know Mom and Isla, they don't get it. You know they don't. But I get it. I just want you to be okay." I didn't know what to say. I hadn't expected him to understand. My brother had always been in the background too, but somehow, his words felt genuine. "I'll be okay," I said, my voice soft. "I just need to do this for me, Luke. I need to figure things out on my own." "I understand," he said quietly. "Just don't shut us out forever, okay?" I didn't promise anything. I couldn't. But his words stayed with me long after the call ended. As the weeks went by, I continued to settle into my new life, adjusting to the rhythm of my new city. I still thought about my family from time to time, but I tried not to let it consume me. I was finally carving out a space for myself where I wasn't someone's afterthought. I was just me, Mira. It wasn't easy. I found myself replaying moments from the wedding in my head. I remembered the sting of Isla's words, how they made me feel like I was nothing more than a prop in her perfect day. I remembered the laughter between my sister and mother, the casual cruelty of it, and I wondered if they even knew how much it had hurt me. But I also found comfort in the small things. I enjoyed my quiet mornings, sitting in the little cafe I worked at, sipping coffee while I watched the world go by. I relished the feeling of not having to rush anywhere, of not being caught up in the whirlwind of family obligations or expectations. For the first time, I was living for myself. Then, one evening, about a month after I'd left, something unexpected happened. I was sitting in my apartment, flipping through a book when my phone buzzed. I had a message from my brother, Luke. I hadn't expected to hear from him again, but the message was simple, almost nonchalant. Mira, Mom's sick. She wants to see you. We all do. The words hit me harder than I expected. I hadn't anticipated that. I had been gone long enough to think they would just forget about me, move on with their lives. But this was different. My mother was sick. It caught me off guard. I couldn't help but wonder if this was just another manipulation, another way for them to draw me back into their orbit. I didn't respond right away. I thought about it for a while, pacing around my apartment, the phone still in my hand. It was strange, this tug-of-war inside me. On one hand, I wanted to stay away. I had worked so hard to escape, to be free of them. But on the other hand, the part of me that still remembered the little girl who once begged for her mother's approval felt a twinge of guilt. What if this time was different? What if they were sincere? I pushed the thought aside. I didn't owe them anything. But then I thought about my brother. Luke had always been different. He wasn't like Isla, always in the spotlight, always getting everything handed to her. Luke had been quiet and thoughtful, a little lost in the chaos of our family. I knew he wasn't calling me to guilt-trip me. There had to be something more to it. I decided to call him back. "Hey, Luke," I said when he picked up, trying to keep my voice steady. "What's going on with Mom? Is it serious?" He sighed on the other end of the line, his voice heavy. "Yeah, Mira. It's not good. Mom's been having health issues for a while now. She's been hiding it from everyone, but it's getting worse. The doctors aren't sure what's going on exactly, but they think it might be more serious than they originally thought." I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. I hadn't been close to my mom in years, but hearing him speak so frankly about her health made it hard to ignore the ache that had been there, buried deep down. "I don't know what to say," I whispered, my voice catching. Luke's tone softened. "I know, Mira. I get it. You're mad at Mom and Isla. But this isn't about them. This is about Mom. She's asking for you." I was silent for a moment, chewing over his words. What if he was right? What if I could let go of the anger, just for a moment, and be there for her? But then the other part of me, the part that had been ignored and dismissed for so long, wanted to lash out. To tell him that I wasn't her caretaker, that I wasn't responsible for fixing everything. "I can't just show up like nothing happened, Luke," I said, my voice more defensive than I meant it to be. "I know," he replied gently. "You don't have to act like everything's okay. Just think about it. For me. For her." I took a deep breath, letting the words sink in. I wanted to say no. I wanted to hold on to my anger, to protect myself from whatever might come next. But something about the way he said it, so quietly, so earnestly, made me pause. "I'll think about it," I finally said. "I'll let you know." The next few days were a blur. I wrestled with my decision, torn between the woman who had raised me and the person I had become. Part of me wanted to just disappear again, to keep running from the past. But part of me knew that this might be my last chance to do something different. I couldn't shake the thought that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't about me. Maybe it wasn't about all the years of hurt, the manipulation, or the resentment. Maybe it was about something more. So, I packed a bag and booked a flight back home. I didn't know what to expect, and I wasn't sure how I felt about seeing my mother again, let alone Isla. But I was going. For Luke. And maybe for myself, too. I arrived back in my hometown a few days later, feeling a mixture of nervousness and uncertainty. It had been over a month since I'd walked out of that wedding, and nothing felt the same. The streets looked smaller, quieter. The place I once called home seemed distant, almost foreign to me now. I took a cab straight to the hospital. I didn't know what to expect when I walked through those doors, but I knew that it would change everything. When I walked into my mother's room, she was sitting up in bed, a small 4 in her arm, looking pale but alert. She looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read, and for a moment, we just stood there, the weight of everything between us. I had spent so long hating her for the things she did and said, for the way she always made me feel small. But now, I wasn't sure what to feel. "Mira," she said softly, her voice hoarse. "I didn't think you'd come." I didn't know how to respond. "I don't know why I'm here, Mom," I finally said, my voice trembling just slightly. "But I'm here. What's going on?" She exhaled slowly, her eyes tired but filled with something I hadn't seen in a long time, vulnerability. "I didn't want you to see me like this," she said quietly. "I thought I could handle it on my own. But I'm scared, Mira." As I stood there, feeling the weight of my mother's words hanging between us, I realized that this wasn't going to be the kind of confrontation I had expected. I had imagined walking in, angry and ready to tell her everything I had been holding inside for years. I thought I would finally let her know how much she had hurt me, how much I had suffered in silence for her and Isla's perfect little world. But this was different. For the first time in my life, my mother seemed small. She was vulnerable, fragile in a way I had never seen before. I had always thought of her as the strong one, the one who never needed anyone. But now, as I looked at her sitting there in the hospital bed, I realized how much of that strength had been an illusion. "I'm scared too, Mom," I said quietly, my voice softer than I had intended. "I'm scared of what you've done to me, and I'm scared of what this family has become." Her eyes widened in shock, as if she had never heard anyone speak to her that way. She opened her mouth to respond, but I wasn't finished. "You've spent years treating me like I was nothing," I continued, my voice gaining strength with every word. "Like I didn't matter. Like I was just the person you could use when you needed something. And you always put Isla first. Always. But you never once stopped to think about how it affected me. How it hurt." Her face twisted with regret, but I wasn't done. "Not yet. I left, Mom. I left because I had to. I couldn't live in your shadow anymore. I couldn't keep being the one who did everything for you and Isla and got nothing in return. You didn't even care about me until you needed me." I saw a flicker of guilt pass across her face, but I didn't stop. "I'm not your pawn, and I'm not Isla's backup. I'm Mira. And you've spent my entire life ignoring that." So I walked away, because I had to take care of myself for once. "And I'm not going back to being the person you want me to be." The room fell silent, the only sound being the quiet beeping of the machines monitoring my mother's condition. For a long moment, she didn't say anything. I didn't expect her to. I wasn't here to fix things, and I wasn't here to get an apology. I had come to realize that no apology would ever be enough to undo the years of hurt. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry, Mira. I don't know how to make it right." I looked at her, my expression hardening, but I didn't feel the anger anymore. I felt tired, worn out. But I wasn't angry at her anymore. I was just done. "You can't fix it, Mom. Not now. Not after everything," I said softly. "But I'm not the same person I was when I left. I'm stronger than that. I'm not going to be your little worker bee anymore." And I'm not going to let you or Isla use me to make your lives easier. She looked at me, her eyes filled with a sadness I had never seen in them before. I don't expect you to come back to us, Mira. I don't deserve that. But I hope, someday, you can forgive me. I met her gaze, my heart heavy, but something inside me told me it was time to let go. I don't know if I can forgive you, I said honestly. But I don't need your approval anymore. I don't need your approval, or Isla's, or anyone's. I'm done being your afterthought. With that, I turned and left the room. It wasn't just my mother that I had to let go of. The next day, I called Isla. I didn't know what I was expecting, maybe a fight, maybe an apology, but when she picked up, I felt nothing but indifference. Mira? She said, as if surprised. What do you want? I'm not coming back, Isla. I'm done, I said, the words feeling like a weight had been lifted off my chest. I'm not playing the role of the invisible sister anymore. I've had enough of being treated like your personal assistant. There was a pause on the other end of the line before she scoffed. You think you can just walk away and make us feel bad? I don't need you, Mira. You've always been the problem. You just couldn't accept that. I could hear the bitterness in her voice, but it didn't matter anymore. It didn't hurt like it used to. I'm not doing this with you, Isla, I said, my voice firm. I don't need to prove anything to you. You and Mom have had your way for long enough. But I'm done being a part of it. I hung up the phone, not waiting for a response. I didn't go back to the hospital the next day, and I didn't visit Isla after that. I stayed in the city, living my life, focusing on my job, and continuing to build the life I had started for myself. Slowly but surely, the weight of my past started to lift, and I began to feel lighter, freer than I had ever felt. The family drama didn't stop right away. Isla continued to try and manipulate my mother into guilt-tripping me into returning, but I ignored it. I had made my decision, and nothing was going to pull me back into their world of dysfunction. Then, a few months later, I got an unexpected call from Luke. I had been avoiding contact with him for a while, not because I didn't love him, but because I needed the distance. But when he called, I answered. I know you're mad at me, he said, his voice quieter than usual. But I wanted you to know something. Mom's getting better. She's actually trying now. She's been talking about you, saying she wants to make things right. I don't know if she can, but I just wanted you to know. I didn't say anything at first, letting his words sink in. Part of me wanted to be happy for her, to feel something positive about the situation, but I didn't. I wasn't ready to forgive her. I wasn't ready to walk back into that mess. Thanks, Luke, I said after a long pause. But I'm not coming back. I'm not going to pretend like things didn't happen. Maybe she'll get better, but I've got my own life now. I'm not going to put myself back in a place where I'm expected to clean up their mess. Luke sighed. I get it, Mira. I really do. But I just thought you should know. I don't want you to think I've forgotten about you. I haven't forgotten about you either, Luke, I said softly. But I need to do this for me. I can't go back. And with that, I hung up the phone. The months turned into a year, and my life continued to move forward. I had my own small circle of friends, a job I enjoyed, and a growing sense of peace that I had never known before. I had taken the money from Isla's wedding, yes, and used it to build the life I deserved. It wasn't about the money, though. It was about the freedom. The freedom to be who I was without the weight of their expectations on my shoulders. I never spoke to my mother or Isla again. They had their lives, and I had mine. I wasn't interested in going back to the cycle of manipulation and control. I had walked away for a reason. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't looking back. I had won, not with cruelty, not with revenge, but by simply walking away and taking back the one thing that had always been in my control, my own life. And that, in the end, was the sweetest revenge of all.